Discover the incredible journey of Genghis Khan, how one warrior transformed history forever. Sarah sat at her cluttered desk, surrounded by papers and history books that felt more like weights than inspiration. The school year wore on, and with each passing day, her spirit dimmed further under a mountain of indifference. Her classroom, trapped in the shadows of apathetic students and colleagues who shared little of her passion, felt increasingly like a boxing ring, one filled with echoes of disinterest. With financial troubles looming over her family, the pressure intensified, constricting her heart in ways that felt almost suffocating. She couldn't shake the feeling that her dreams of inspiring young minds were peeled back layer by layer, revealing the raw fear of failure. As she prepared her groundbreaking lesson on Genghis Khan, a figure whose journey from poverty to greatness mirrored her unfulfilled potential, a flicker of hope ignited within her. Approaching his life with fresh enthusiasm, Sarah saw in Khan's story a metaphor for resilience, a chance to highlight the struggle and triumph of the human spirit. "I can weave their stories through history," she murmured, envisioning a community history project that would weave together the threads of their shared past to create vibrant lessons for her students. But each time that enthusiasm bubbled up, she felt the weight of doubt descend, tightening her chest. She envisioned her proposal taking flight, soaring over the disapproving gazes of the school board. Yet, the very thought of their skepticism sent tremors through her. Caught between determination and the fear of being judged, she struggled to keep her focus. There was a complexity to her purpose, a moral dilemma. Should she continuously climb the mountains of indifference for a cause few acknowledged? Or should she step back and accept that perhaps her efforts wouldn't make waves in a still pool? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The day of the presentation loomed nearer, and the pressure weighed on her like a thick fog. Whispers of doubt surrounded her every move, the apprehension of her colleagues and their dismissive attitudes transformed her once clear thoughts into jumbled questions of worth. With her grandfather's unwavering words echoing in her mind, she clung to hope, though it felt fragile. But when an unexpected setback shook her project, a dark cloud of despair enveloped her vision of the future. Questions knocked furiously at her mind. Was she strong enough to fight for her dreams? As she stood before her students that day, adrenaline coursing through her veins, the shadows of uncertainty whispered in her ear. Sarah took a breath, trying to steady the racing of her heart. Can one voice truly matter in a world that often chooses silence? The moment had come for her to confront not just their skepticism, but the ever-lurking doubt within herself. With a simple title on the board, she was about to step into a whirlwind. Could she transform the atmosphere of her classroom, or would she fade into the backdrop of disconnection? Tension hung thick in the air, leaving everyone on the edge, both students and Sarah. The future stretched out like a taut wire, ready to snap. As Sarah stood there, the air thick with expectancy, something shifted inside her. The hesitant rhythm of her breathing transformed into a steady resolve. It was as if the echoes of Genghis Khan's legacy began aligning with her own aspirations, igniting a fierce determination within her. She would no longer see herself as an isolated figure battling against indifference. Instead, she would embody the very essence of resilience she aimed to impart. With newfound conviction, she began articulating Khan's journey, painting vivid images in the minds of her students. Imagine growing up in a world filled with constant challenges, yet still finding a way to lead and inspire, she said, each word sending ripples of engagement through the room. As she recounted Khan's life, she noticed flickers of interest igniting in her students' eyes. The tales of ambition and strategic acumen were no longer just historical facts, they became pathways for understanding their own narratives. Yet, even amidst this perceived spark, an internal battle raged. What if her students remained disengaged? What if this brief moment of connection faded as quickly as it appeared? She felt the weight of vulnerability, like a nail being driven into her resolve. But then she reminded herself of the stakes. This was not just about the lesson on one historical figure, it was a test of her own belief in education as a transformative force. She paused, allowing silence to weave through the room, creating a tension that drew her students closer. But tell me, what do you think is the lesson in this? Her voice sliced through the fog of uncertainty, welcoming their input. The room erupted in conversation. Questions bounced back and forth, reflections surfaced, and a dynamic exchange replaced the earlier apathy. Each comment felt like a small victory, affirming her decision to speak up. Gradually, Sarah recognized that her vulnerability had opened a door she once feared to approach. The students were not just passive observers, they were willing participants in their learning journey. As she listened closely, she felt their thoughts and ideas feed her own understanding of resilience and leadership. With every contribution, her confidence deepened, buoyed by the realization that she, too, had the power to shape their perceptions. Encouraged by their engagement, Sarah decided to pivot slightly. What if we explored your own stories, the challenges you faced? The room shifted again, the air thick with possibility. For the first time in months, she caught a glimpse of her own purpose shining brightly through the cracks of doubt. Could she genuinely inspire them to reflect on their resilience? The discussion unfolded, and Sarah witnessed the blossoming of students who had previously lingered in the shadows of disinterest. They were no longer just names on attendance rosters, they carried their personal struggles, their battles against indifference mirrored her own. Yet, as the final bell rang, signaling the end of class, a flicker of worry crept back in. She had touched a nerve today, kindled their curiosity, but would it last? Would they carry this newfound awareness beyond their classroom? A powerful sense of urgency washed over her. This wasn't merely a lesson, it was an evolving challenge to reshape her approach, to continue conquering doubt in favor of growth. As the students filed out, voices laughing and echoing down the hallway, she finally allowed herself a small smile. Maybe this was just a stepping stone on the path to something greater. But as she gathered her materials, a nagging voice questioned, how would she keep this momentum alive? It was clear that the real work, the profound, transformative part, was just beginning. What if I could create a project that would draw out more of their stories? The idea sparked in her mind, carrying an electric charge. The crossroads loomed ahead, full of potential and uncertainty. The next step was unclear, yet the need to explore those possibilities sent a surge of excitement through her veins. Tomorrow, she would need to face the school board, armed not just with her ideas, but with a heart prepared to advocate for her vision, to advocate for her students' voices. Would they support her passion, or would their indifference extinguish her fire before it could truly blaze? The moment of truth was drawing near. As Sarah entered the school building the following morning, a mix of excitement and apprehension coursed through her veins. The project idea loomed over her, its potential both thrilling and terrifying. She could visualize a workshop where students not only shared their stories but also created a tapestry of resilience that illustrated their shared experiences. The question remained, though, how to present this vision to the school board. Her breath quickened as she approached the administrative office, where the board meeting would soon commence. Would they see the value in her initiative, or would they dismiss it as just another classroom exercise? She pressed the palms of her hands against her sides, her heart pounding with every step closer to their judgment. As she took her seat, she noticed the members of the school board exchanging glances, their expressions unreadable. This was at the moment where she had to transform the promise of her idea into a compelling argument. It's not just about teaching history, it's about empowering students to recognize their capabilities and build resilience, she rehearsed internally, knowing it was a fragile thread to hold on to. When her turn arrived, Sarah stood to present. She began by recounting her own journey, the challenges she faced both as an educator and as an individual. She spoke candidly about the struggle against indifference she had witnessed in her students, emphasizing how vital it was to encourage them to express their stories. I want them to see that they're not defining themselves by their struggles, but are instead crafting a narrative of resilience, she stated, her voice steadying as she found comfort in her sincerity. She illustrated her vision with examples from Genghis Khan, drawing parallels between his formidable journey and her students' untold stories. Yet, as she spoke, doubt crept steadily into her mind. The board members' faces seemed increasingly skeptical, arms crossed, lips pursed. The room buzzed with silence, drowning out her enthusiasm. Could they genuinely grasp the transformative nature of sharing personal narratives? As each second ticked away, focused silence morphed into a suffocating weight. Then, a question pierced through her spiraling thoughts. But how do you measure success? One board member asked, eyebrows raised. The question demanded a concrete response, a tangible justification for her initiative. Sarah hesitated, her mind racing to formulate a confident answer. In that moment, the realization struck her hard: success wouldn't just be measured by test scores or attendance figures, it would live in the stories that emerged, the voices that found traction through shared experiences and connection. Success will be reflected in the growth of confidence and self-awareness amongst the students, she responded, surprising herself with the clarity of her conviction. These narratives will foster empathy, help them see their own strength and resilience in action. A palpable shift filled the room as the board members absorbed her words. Despite the initial pushback, she saw a glimmer of curiosity in their eyes. Just as hope began flickering within her, another member interjected. And what about the resources? Is this financially viable? The question hung heavily, a reminder of the bureaucratic realities she faced. The nagging voice of doubt whispered at the edges of her resolve, but Sarah kept her composure. We can start small, work within existing frameworks, she proposed. We can document their progress and seek funding based on demonstrated outcomes. Each suggestion felt like a fragile lifeline. But would it be enough? As the meeting drew to a close, she sensed that some board members were beginning to warm to her idea, but uncertainty lingered. What if they still dismissed her vision? The tension tightened around her, a reminder of her personal stake in this endeavor. After the meeting, as she exited the room, she caught snippets of conversations behind her. Interesting approach, one member said. Pioneering for sure, another added. Those words, though promising, felt incomplete. She had opened a door, but could she ensure it would remain ajar? As she returned to her classroom, Sarah was left grappling with her own emotions. It was clear the journey she embarked on was far from resolved. The vision of her project had sparked interest, but she could sense that the next phase demanded not just passion, but unwavering effort to materialize it fully. Tomorrow starts again, she murmured to herself as she prepared for the students waiting to share their voices. Stepping forward meant confronting the unknown, a battle she was willing to engage in. But in the back of her mind, the question lingered, how would she weave the threads of resilience and storytelling into a cohesive force that could push through any remaining barriers? The next challenge awaited, and it was time to elevate her efforts to meet it head-on. As sunlight streamed through the classroom windows, Sarah felt an exhilarating pulse of energy collide with the lingering anxiety from the board meeting. Her students, a vibrant mix of backgrounds and stories, were a canvas upon which she hoped to paint her vision of resilience. Today was about action, about igniting the spark of storytelling. Walking to the front of the class, she took a breath, grounding herself in the mission that had now entangled with her identity. Good morning, everyone. Today, we begin to build our tapestry of resilience, she announced, her voice carrying a blend of enthusiasm and determination. But beneath her confident exterior, she felt the weight of the unknown pressing against her chest. Could these young minds decipher their own narratives? She introduced the idea of personal stories, framing it with the notion that everyone has a tale worth telling, much like Genghis Khan's tale of triumph against overwhelming odds. What defines us is not just what has happened to us, but how we choose to respond to it, she said, observing their expressions shift from confusion to curiosity. Sarah divided the students into small groups, setting the stage for collaborative brainstorming. As they discussed among themselves, she roamed among the tables, listening to snippets of their conversations. Stories unfolded organically, tales of challenges faced, victories won, and moments of vulnerability. Yet, she also detected the threads of hesitation, some students struggled to articulate their narratives, their fears straining their confidence. One student, Marcus, hesitated longer than the rest, his body language, slumped shoulders and downcast eyes revealed his apprehension. Determined to reach him, Sarah approached him gently. "Marcus, do you have a story you would like to share?" He looked up, surprise flickering through his expression. "I don't think anyone would want to hear my story." "It's not special," he mumbled. Sarah felt her heart tug at that moment. Every story is special because it is uniquely yours. It's possible you're seeing it through a lens of comparison. What does it mean to you? His brows furrowed, and after a moment, he began to speak, albeit quietly. As he shared snippets of his experience moving to a new school, facing bullying, Sarah listened intently, absorbing every word. She realized that this moment was pivotal, not just for him, but for her mission. After Marcus finished, she knew she had to encourage him to see the value of his journey. "Marcus, your story is powerful. You've navigated challenges that many can resonate with, and your resilience shines through. Let us work together to find the strength in it." Gathering her students, she initiated a new exercise. "I want you to write a simple line or two about what resilience means to you. Think of a moment when you faced a challenge and what it taught you about yourself." The pencils danced across paper, and for a moment, the only sound was the shuffling of ideas coming to life. Observing their concentrated expressions gave Sarah a renewed sense of purpose. But her mind drifted back to the board meeting, looming like a storm cloud in the background. She needed a concrete plan to present, with measures of success that the board would understand. Could I establish specific metrics to track confidence growth? She pondered internally. As she collected the students' written reflections, a vibrant mix of voices blared around the room, filled with excitement and discovery. Each story, she realized, was also a stepping stone towards her broader goal, a path leading gradually toward a more significant change. Yet, as these moments of clarity emerged, another wave of uncertainty washed over her. Marcus's story lingered in her mind. She recalled the skepticism still present in the board members' expressions. Would they truly comprehend the depth of impact that sharing these narratives could create? With the bell signaling the end of class, Sarah felt a renewed determination unfurling inside her. No longer was this just about an initiative, it was a means to foster growth that could echo far beyond these walls. But she knew that to translate these individual stories into a movement, she would have to confront both her insecurities and the institutional resistance she faced. The next hurdle awaited. How would she translate these shared moments of resilience into a compelling narrative for the board that could galvanize their support? As her students filed out, Sarah stood at her desk, grappling with the complexity of the challenge ahead. She had embarked on a personal journey, and now, the serious work lay in forging those connections visibly enough for the world to see. Would she have the courage to breach that final barrier? As the classroom emptied, Sarah remained rooted in contemplation, a swirl of ideas competing for prominence in her mind. The walls echoed the laughter and chatter of her students, a stark contrast to the silence that enveloped her. She grasped the papers filled with her students' reflections, each word a testament to paths they had begun to identify and articulate. It was a reminder of the raw power of storytelling, but the question loomed, how could she leverage this to sway the board? The clock ticked mercilessly, and Sarah knew she needed to act. She envisioned creating a presentation that would showcase not just individual stories but that would connect her students' narratives to the broader goal of fostering resilience and self-awareness among youth. It dawned on her that the board would need compelling visuals and metrics, something beyond mere anecdotes that could capture their attention. She scribbled down ideas for a framework, key points on how storytelling could enhance emotional intelligence, bolster self-confidence, and promote empathy amongst peers. This strategy unfolded rapidly in her mind, yet another apprehension surfaced: could she make them understand that the power of each unique story transcended numbers and charts? As the day turned to dusk, Sarah found herself pacing her apartment, rehearsing the presentation. She practiced her tone, aiming for conviction, but deep inside, a flicker of doubt taunted her. What he didn't know about himself was the impact his students were having on her. she muttered under her breath, frustration bubbling to the surface. She decided to reflect on the stories of her students, each one a thread in the tapestry she hoped to weave for the board. This approach had to be personal, so she steadied herself and began to draft narratives around Marcus, who had revealed his story of vulnerability, and other students whose bravery to share had ignited their peers. To showcase the real consequence of these tales, she envisioned incorporating video snippets of the students sharing their narratives. Perhaps, she mused, the authenticity of their experiences could override the board's skepticism. But what if the board criticized her methods? What if they deemed her ideas unprofessional? Sarah's thoughts swirled like a whirlwind, reflection, anxiety, and determination all battling for dominance. She needed a decisive strategy, one robust enough to quell her own fears and resonate with the board. In this cluttered moment, a breakthrough clarity surfaced. She could arrange a small showcase featuring her students during the meeting. They could present their stories live, creating a raw emotional impact that graphs and charts could never achieve. This newfound plan filled her with exhilaration, yet it also revealed another layer of vulnerability. Would her students be willing to share in front of the board? When she approached Marcus the following day, he exhibited a mix of confusion and anxiety at the proposal. Encouraging him required a delicate balance of inspiration and understanding. Marcus, this is an opportunity for you to empower others with your journey. You already showed so much bravery, she urged, heart pounding as his face mirrored uncertainty. Do you really think it'll make a difference? He asked softly, vulnerability spilling into the room like ink on paper. Sarah realized that she needed to fortify his belief in himself. Yes, Marcus. Your story is a beacon that others could follow. Let us show the board what it means to be resilient. But in that moment, flickers of her own doubt resurfaced. Was she asking too much of him, of them? Convincing the students meant risking potential rejection, something that could bruise the very confidence she meant to instill. With every passing moment, Sarah felt the urgency build. The board meeting was close, and the stakes were escalating. She had to turn the growing flame of doubt into an inferno of resolve. As she continued to work with Marcus and the other students, she felt an inkling of hope grow within her, a belief in their collective power that might just shatter barriers. As the days warmed into the meeting, Sarah stood poised at the precipice of a transformative moment, uncertain but determined to take the leap. Would her attempts to foster a culture of resilience within her students translate into the institutional support she sought? Could their stories indeed forge the very connections she desperately needed? The tension coiled tighter, like a spring ready to unleash unforeseen potential, as Sarah prepared for the critical confrontation that awaited her. As the sun peered through her window, casting long shadows across the papers strewn on her table, Sarah felt the weight of anticipation pressing down on her shoulders. She glanced at the calendar. 3 days remained until the board meeting. The plan she had carefully constructed was still untested, yet a flicker of conviction ignited within her. This would not merely be a presentation, it was a pivotal moment for both her and her students. Determined to overcome the nervous energy thrumming beneath her skin, she called for a meeting with Marcus and her other key students. She chose a spot in the school's library, a place where stories lived in books and echoed in whispers among the shelves. As they gathered, Sarah noted the nervousness radiating from their young faces, an amalgam of excitement and fear. Thank you all for being here, she began, her voice steadying as she drew inspiration from those tentative smiles. This is a chance for us to share your incredible stories and show the board what it really means to be resilient. Marcus shifted in his seat, uncertainty clouding his expression. Sarah could see the internal struggle, his desire to share battling against the fear of exposure. Let us warm up with a simple exercise, she suggested, aiming to foster comfort. What does storytelling mean to you? As students began sharing their thoughts, Sarah listened intently, noting their unique perspectives. This wasn't merely an academic endeavor, it was personal, each voice uncovering layers of emotion, pain, and triumph. She watched as their confidence began to build with every word spoken, and with it, a sense of camaraderie grew among them. Later, Marcus volunteered to share his story first, a wave of courage surging visibly through him. His voice trembled initially, but Sarah encouraged him to find strength in authenticity. "Speak as if you're talking to a friend," she prompted softly. Each word he spoke was a revelation: his struggles with self-doubt, the ways he felt trapped in a narrative he hadn't authored. The room fell silent, captivated by his vulnerability. "Your truth is powerful, Marcus," Sarah applauded him, and for the first time, she saw a flicker of belief spark in his eyes as he absorbed their appreciation. Others followed suit, sharing facets of themselves that were buried deep. It became a safe haven, a sanctuary of acceptance where each story wove into the fabric of shared experiences. As the shared moments unfolded throughout the week, Sarah continued to balance her own fears with the unfolding of their potential. Night after night, she worked late into the dawn, fine-tuning her presentation, crafting each visual to ensure it resonated. She infused narratives with images of her students, pressing importance on how these stories encapsulated the essence of resilience and hope. Yet doubt crept in like an unwelcome guest at a gathering. Would the board actually understand the value of emotional narratives? Would they regard her students' experiences as valid evidence, or merely anecdotal adventuring? As she tailored the content, she worried about their perceptions, wondering if they would equate her approach with sentimentality rather than the hard-edged reality of emotional growth. The pressure continued to build. On the eve of the presentation rehearsal, Sarah gathered everyone again. "This is it, the last push before we face the board," she told them, her own excitement blending with nervousness. "Remember, what each of you brings to this is invaluable." As they practiced, energy surged in the room, a palpable aura of hope and determination forging a bond between them all. They weren't just preparing for a presentation, they were on the verge of sharing their authentic selves with an audience that, just perhaps, might transform their trajectories. But deep down, a creeping unease pulsed in her chest. If they faltered, could she still defend her idea? Her entire plan hinged on their stories. The stakes felt insurmountably high, and yet, as she observed their enthusiasm, a quiet resolve began to tether itself in her heart. Now, knowing they were more than just her students, they were formidable storytellers capable of shifting perceptions. Sarah felt the thrill of possibility stir within her. The moment was almost here, and she realized conviction wasn't just about believing in ideas. It was about believing in each other. As she closed the session, a decisive clarity washed over her. She would harness their collective narrative power to challenge the board, not just to win their approval, but to ignite a fire that could transform minds and hearts. The next day, they would step onto that stage together. Little did Sarah know, the true test of her own resilience and the strength of her students awaited just beyond those doors. Would they be able to defy expectations, or would their stories be silenced once more? The sun barely illuminated the corners of the room as Sarah stood in front of the mirror, rehearsing her opening lines. Despite the familiar reflection, the woman staring back felt transformed, layers of self-doubt peeling away with each telling of her vision. She questioned if the conviction she felt would carry her through the challenges ahead, but the soft whispers of her students' stories echoed in her mind, pushing her forward. As she entered the conference room, she kept Marcus's heartfelt narrative at the forefront of her thoughts. His earnestness was a reminder of the stakes. The sight of the board, unfamiliar faces adorned with skepticism, made her pulse quicken. Each member, tailored in formal attire, seemed to symbolize the rigid expectations of the educational system. Their collective aura felt constricting, making her question if she was out of her league. Could she really present their stories as something transformative? "As educators, we are often focused on metrics," began the chairwoman, her tone curiously clinical. "Let us ensure that today's discussion remains concise." Sarah took a breath. Her heart thudded as she stepped toward the projector. "But today isn't just about metrics," she countered, her voice firmer than she felt. "It's about human connections, resilience, and the lived experiences that shape these students." A murmur rippled through the room, curiosity piqued by her deviation from the standard script. As the presentation unfolded, Sarah displayed visuals, images of Marcus, other students, and quotes that encapsulated their stories. She saw the shift in the atmosphere, a growing piquancy not just from her words, but from the palpable weight of truth being shared. And then, unplanned and impulsively, she invited Marcus to join her on stage. The silence that enveloped them was heavy, laden with uncertainty. He hesitated, visibly shaken, but Sarah offered a reassuring nod. Together, they presented a symbiotic front, and slowly but surely, Marcus found his voice. "I never thought my story mattered," he began, shaking slightly. "But when I shared it, I discovered strength I didn't know I had." His words, raw and piercing, resonated throughout the room. Sarah watched the board members' demeanor shift, brows knitted in contemplation replaced the earlier skepticism. This was the moment she had hoped for, where education transformed into experience, transcending mere data-driven discussions. The stories began to weave through the barriers that initially divided them, becoming more than a presentation, it was a shared healing. Yet doubt emerged from the crevices of her mind as she noticed a board member, arms crossed, ambivalent of the emotional narrative. What if this clash of ideals resulted in dismissal? The thought sent a chill through her. She would need to defend not just the stories, but the concept itself, the necessity of emotional intelligence in education. Eager to strike a balance between emotion and practicality, Sarah shifted her focus. Our student stories are not just anecdotes. They represent resilience in the face of adversity, crucial life skills that data alone cannot measure. When we empower our students to share their truths, we create leaders who can empathize and inspire. As she spoke, Sarah felt an awakening inside her. The tension that once held her captive loosened its grip. She was no longer merely advocating for her students, she was advocating for a paradigm shift in education itself. Yet, deep down, a flicker of dread lingered. Could logic and emotional narrative coexist within the confines of structured education? By the time they concluded, the board members were visibly engaged, leaning forward as if grappling with revelations. But when the session ended and the members retreated for discussion, the lingering glances and indecipherable expressions hinted at unresolved tensions. As she and Marcus stepped down from the stage, she exchanged a glance filled with unspoken apprehension. They had challenged norms, expressed vulnerabilities, yet shadows of doubt still loomed over their triumph. That evening, Sarah returned home, the weight of uncertainty settling like a cloak around her shoulders. She paced her living room, questioning whether she had done enough to bridge the gap. Had she succeeded in igniting a spark, or had she only stirred the pot without clarity? The tension between possibility and vulnerability gnawed at her. She clung to the hope that the board would appreciate their effort, yet an icy clench reminded her that the real battle lay ahead. The final decision would reflect not only on their presentation but on her ability to mold a new narrative in education. In this pivotal moment of self-discovery, she couldn't ignore the question that gripped her heart: what if the fight for understanding was just beginning? The next morning arrived shrouded in the quiet hum of uncertainty that still clung to Sarah's mind. She brewed her coffee, its rich aroma a fleeting comfort, and flicked through her emails. Among routine updates, a message from Marcus caught her eye, its subject line pulsing with eagerness: follow-up and next steps. She opened it, her heart racing as she read his words, filled with gratitude and enthusiasm. He spoke of a newfound motivation to share more of his story, to inspire other students to do the same. Yet along with his excitement, Sarah sensed the weight of her own responsibilities settling around her. Supporting Marcus meant not just amplifying his voice but cultivating an environment conducive to more stories. Would she be able to rise to that challenge? Deciding to meet Marcus after school, Sarah prepared herself for an open dialogue. She knew she needed to discuss not just his recent accomplishments, but what came next for them both. The effort they'd put into the board presentation was just the beginning. A chasm of doubt lay ahead, laden with the potential for confrontation and misunderstanding. As the day dragged on, her mind looped back to the board members' ambiguous reactions. That City Hall confrontation had stirred something within her, a belief in emotional connection as a compelling catalyst for change, but she worried that the educational hierarchy might choke that idea before it could flourish. After classes ended, she met Marcus in the library, a familiar haven of books and knowledge. He was animated as she arrived, eyes bright with energy. "That presentation opened doors for me, Sarah. I can't believe how many people are interested in hearing what I have to say," he exclaimed. "Your story deserves to be heard, Marcus. But we need a plan to keep this momentum going," she replied, feigning confidence. The reality gnawed at her. They had merely stirred the pot, but the simmering doubt still threatened to boil over. As they brainstormed ideas for a student storytelling workshop, each thought bore weight. Would other students open up as Marcus had? Sarah's mind turned towards the logistical hurdles. She envisioned a space where students could unearth their narratives, lives defined not by metrics but by thoughts and feelings. Yet, inwardly she grappled with her anxieties. What if her peers resisted such a shift? Her colleagues, who had long adhered to quantifiable data, might scoff at the notion of emotional storytelling encroaching on their structured syllabi. "Sarah," Marcus interrupted her spiraling thoughts, "you're the one leading this now. Your passion is contagious." There it was, a spark of self-belief. If she wanted to turn their shared experience into a transformative journey for others, she needed to own it. Sarah took a deep breath, resolving to hone her voice further, shape it with clarity. "You're right. We'll present a proposal to the board, incorporating workshops and opportunities for vulnerable dialogues." "I believe in this, Sarah," he affirmed. "You're the right person to champion it." His confidence seeped into her, but an unsettling realization dawned: laying this foundation might invite scrutiny and pushback. As she considered the potential fallout from advocating such untested ideas, her heart raced once again with uncertainty and determination. They crafted a preliminary outline for the proposal, channeling their collective energy into something tangible. However, Sarah noticed fleeting moments of doubt lingering in the corners of her mind, an echo of skepticism from the board still fresh. Her belief was growing, yet so were her fears. As the sun dipped below the horizon, an unexpected message pinged on her phone, a notification that the board meeting would reconvene sooner than anticipated to address next steps regarding their presentation. Their initial spark had ignited interest, but the air crackled with questions regarding the efficacy of emotional storytelling in training the next generation of educators. In that moment, anxiety collided with resolve. The time had come to take a definitive stand, to represent her vision unapologetically. But the uncertainty remained: how would she handle opposition from the very system she aimed to change? A deep breath steadying her pulse, Sarah felt a familiar flicker of determination awaken. The fight was no longer just about Marcus's story, it was about redefining education itself. And as she stared into the twilight, she knew that transformation was often born from struggle. Tomorrow, she would confront the board once again, but now she wasn't just an advocate, she would be a warrior. As morning light crept through her window the following day, Sarah's thoughts churned with the weight of her impending presentation. Her pulse quickened at the reality of facing the board members once more. Gone was the shield of anonymity. Today, she would stand exposed, an embodiment of her ideas and aspirations. Stepping into her routine, she intentionally slowed her pace, savoring each sip of coffee, letting its warmth seep into her resolve. Arriving at the school, Sarah felt a mix of anticipation and dread. Each step toward the meeting room echoed a countdown to vulnerability. She reviewed her notes yet again, rehearsing her key points as her mind danced perilously between optimism and trepidation. She needed to convey not just the importance of emotional storytelling but the urgency behind it, a necessity for nurturing student identities amidst rigid systems. As she entered the boardroom, a wave of quelling energy washed over her. The members were already seated, their gazes piercing as they acknowledged her presence. Some faces showed fleeting interest, while others bore the stern expression of skepticism she had come to expect. "Thank you for meeting with me today," Sarah began, her voice steadying as she refocused her purpose. "Today, we want to discuss the potential of our storytelling workshop." "Storytelling?" interrupted Ms. Jenkins, the most resistant board member. "Do we really believe that anecdotal narratives can promote anything valuable for students? Isn't this a distraction from curriculum coherence?" The comment sliced through her composure, but Sarah stood firm. Ms. Jenkins, stories shape our identities and influence how we engage with the world. This isn't about distraction, it's about creating a dialogue that invites our students to bring their whole selves into the classroom. Around the table, murmurs emerged. Some were supportive while others reinforced the apprehension that clung heavily in the air. Sarah's heart hammered, she could feel the dissonance between her beliefs and their perceptions. Perhaps your enthusiasm outweighs the practicality of this initiative, Mr. Thompson added, an arch of skepticism etched on his brow. Can you provide us with tangible outcomes? How do we measure success in emotional narratives? A wave of fear threatened to sweep her confidence, but Sarah inhaled deeply, flipping her mental switch. Success is not solely quantitative. It lies in the qualitative growth of our students. If we give them space to express themselves, we foster self-awareness, resilience, and understanding qualities that standardized tests can't measure. The room simmered with tension. Sarah's gaze darted from one member to another, searching for any sign of agreement. She recalled Marcus's words, resonating in her mind like a lifeline. You're the one leading this now. In that moment of doubt, a flicker of purpose ignited within her. The stakes were higher than she had imagined, but surrender was not an option. Imagine an environment, she continued, asserting her voice with renewed vigor, where students are encouraged to explore their emotions, to connect with peers over shared struggles, where storytelling becomes a foundation for empathy. This isn't just an initiative, it's a shift in how we educate. Before she could let uncertainty creep back in, she moved to the whiteboard. Sketching the framework of their envisioned workshop, she transformed her fears into action. Here's how we can facilitate these spaces, with guidelines for both students and faculty. I want this to be a collaborative effort, not just a top-down mandate. As she outlined their proposals, she observed the board's expressions subtly shift. Openness crept in, curiosity mingling with their skepticism. It was a fragile tether, one she knew needed nurturing. When she finally wrapped up her presentation, an echo of profound silence enveloped the room. Sarah's heart raced, she was left hanging in calculated anticipation. Would they champion this shift, or were her fears well placed? Let's take this under consideration, he said slowly. We'll reach out to you with any further questions. As she walked out, the weight of both accomplishment and uncertainty lay heavy upon her shoulders. She had fought valiantly, yet the outcome remained unrevealed, dangling like a thread awaiting resolution. Later that evening, as she mulled over the jagged edge of hope and doubt in her living room, a message pinged on her phone. A familiar name appeared: Marcus. She hesitated before opening it, apprehensions layered with curiosity. I heard the board met today. How did it go? The simplicity of his question felt loaded with expectation. But what she didn't know was how profoundly their next steps would ripple through her own journey, redefining not just her professional path but illuminating hidden corners of her identity she had yet to explore. Would she transform mere ideas into action? The journey was far from over, and the ground was shifting beneath her feet. In the days that followed the board meeting, Sarah felt a momentous shift within herself, one that resonated with the changing pulse of her environment. Although the board's decision remained ambiguous, the experience had forged a deeper commitment to her vision. No longer was she just a teacher navigating the discomforts of a resistant system, she was a champion of her students' stories. Marcus's message had ignited a spark within her. Let's turn these uncertainties into actionable plans, she resolved. With renewed clarity, she reached out to her students, transforming their classroom into a hub of creative collaboration. The storytelling workshop was no longer a mere idea, it was a mission to be realized, a powerful endeavor that would embody their collective narratives. As she shared her vision, Sarah witnessed the hesitant looks on her students' faces transform into ones of excitement. Each student began to share snippets about their lives, their experiences fueling the fire of inspiration. As confidence blossomed among them, she recognized the profound impact of vulnerability. Every story became a thread, weaving an intricate tapestry of resilience that resonated deeply with her. Together, they structured a curriculum that emphasized emotional literacy alongside academic achievement. It was a bold leap, a commitment to foster emotional intelligence in a traditionally Stoic education system. Each week, students shared personal experiences, not just for the sake of storytelling but to cultivate empathy, self-awareness, and authentic connections with their peers. Sarah deftly managed her fears and the weight of impending skepticism, fueled by glimpses of her students' evolving transformations. No longer were they confined to the labels others placed on them, they became agents of change, equipped with the courage to articulate their truths. Yet with these victories came challenges. As word spread about the workshop, some colleagues voiced their concern. "Isn't this just fluff? Our focus should be on academic rigor," one criticized. But Sarah stood resolute. Emotion and intellect are not mutually exclusive. When we engage our students' whole selves, we are promoting lifelong learners, she asserted, her voice steady. The response wasn't always favorable, but Sarah found herself respecting the resistance. Each objection served as an opportunity to refine her focus, generating energy behind her initiative. Concrete evidence began to emerge. Students who participated in the workshop displayed notable confidence in expressing themselves, while their academic performance reflected a holistic rate of growth that could not be ignored. The breakthrough came when she was invited back to the board meeting to present these developments. As she stood at the forefront of the room again, her spirit soared. She was no longer negotiating her worth but embodying the very transformation she had fought for. "Here are the stories that illustrate our progress," she began, showcasing videos of her students thriving as they expressed their passions. The board listened, transfixed, as each narrative shared reflected profound resilience that transcended traditional metrics. One by one, her students spoke about the power of storytelling, how it transformed their lives by illuminating the paths they wanted to take. It wasn't just an academic exercise, it was a life-altering experience. As the session drew to a close, the board chairwoman leaned forward, her expression softened by understanding. "We underestimated the impact of this initiative. It seems you've demonstrated that emotional intelligence truly enhances our educational framework," she conceded. In that moment, Sarah felt an incredible wave of fulfillment wash over her. Their stories had not only changed her classroom, they were beginning to reshape the educational narrative within the board. Weeks later, the board officially integrated empathy training and storytelling workshops into the curriculum across the district, affirming Sarah's conviction that emotional intelligence was a vital component of education. Having conquered her doubts and embraced her purpose, Sarah stood before her class one afternoon, filled with pride. "Today, we celebrate your stories. You have accomplished something incredible." Her students beamed, transformed not only as learners but as confident storytellers. Marcus stepped forward, his face glowing. "It all started with the courage to share. Thank you for believing in us." Recognition of her endeavor solidified her position within the school. Sarah's journey was marked not by external validation, but by an internal evolution. She embraced her identity as a transformative educator, an unwavering advocate for emotional learning. As her classroom flourished, she allied herself with other educators, forging a network dedicated to redefining narratives in schools. This challenge became her life's work, a testament to the profound connection between storytelling and resilience. Today, Sarah stands with solid confidence, recognized competence, and established position among her peers. She has truly transformed not just her professional journey but ignited a spark of possibility for countless students navigating their own paths of resilience. And so, the narrative continues to unfold, reminding us that every story matters and every voice deserves to be heard. You need to subscribe now to ensure you don't miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to help the algorithm shine a light on tales of personal transformation. Comment below with your reactions and theories about the ending. Your voice makes a difference. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion, because true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions. Don't wait even one more second to share.